because you're on the hot seat, so I don't want to ask you any more questions.
All right.
I'm feeling compelled to say this. I'm really concerned about historically and even now the lack of sense of urgency on how to address the anti-Black racism that has helped to destroy Black communities in this city. I'm deeply concerned, and I want to be a partner in the Black Student Success Program. There's a lot of great things happening in CPS. There's been a lot of harm done. And that harm, and I'm bringing it up because if we're going to say never again, then we can't get anesthetized to the reality that I live in a neighborhood with several closed schools, right? I live in a neighborhood with no grocery stores, but plenty of liquor stores. I live in a neighborhood with slumlords. And poverty, we tend to act as if poverty is a choice of the poor. Not that poverty is a manufactured state. And so if we're going to truly be serious about equity, we also have to address, and we have to be forward thinking, and I'm saying this to this board, we have to look at the fact that in the same neighborhood where we need a revitalization of our schools, we also need a revitalization of housing. We also need food production and delivery systems. And that's the burden of leadership, that we have to be able to look forward. I live in a neighborhood where my grocery store burned down after the George Floyd murder. It hasn't been replaced. So I have to go to Oak Park to go shopping. I got a little means. What about the families that don't have it? I live in a neighborhood that flooded. And we were at 1 minute told that, in July of last year. And seniors who lived in their basements. So the attack on Black communities has been through a lens of hatred. That's how we feel it. It has been through a lens of hatred. So if we're going to do a Black Student Success Program, it has to be a priority. It has to be a priority. I've worked most of my adult life in communities where people didn't have a pot to pee in or a window to throw it out of. And when we were dealing with slumlords, it was our fault. When we were fighting school closings, it was our fault. When we didn't have a grocery store, it was our fault. When our children were being shot up with Ritalin, it was our fault. So all I'm saying is that I'm excited about the possibilities, but we have to see beyond the obvious. If we're talking about Black student success, then we have to be serious about rebuilding the basic quality of life institutions in Black communities that have been destroyed, and also address the lack of ownership in our communities. I come from a neighborhood, I grew up with the man that owned the gas station looked like me. There was no liquor store on the corner of my block. It was a white-hand pantry. Somebody looked like me owned it. And if you talk to people in my age grade, I'm 58 years old, across the United States, we have a common experience that in the 1980s, something happened. Now, I may be saying this, and you say, what does this have to do with education? Everything. Everything. There are people in this room that have never experienced a slumlord. There are people in this room that have a grocery store. They got a Whole Foods, a Treasure Island. Not Baba's liquor store on the corner of your block where milk is $6. So, excuse me if I'm making people uncomfortable, but those are my people. That's my base. And I'm going to lift those voices up in this space. I'm saying this to the CEO. I'm saying this to the board. We got to think beyond the obvious. Ms. Biggs, you were a principal at a school where there was no grocery store within 1.5 miles of that school. I know that because I worked with you. So I'm a believer in this. And I want to work with you all on it. But we're not going to be short-sighted. We're not going to be short-sighted. It's not enough to tolerate Black people. Address the wrongs that have been done. And you all can be leaders in doing that. You can be leaders in doing it. We have endured so much baseless hatred, so much. So we stand with our sisters and brothers who are facing ICE raids. We stand with those sisters and brothers, but we need some people to stand with us. And that's what I'm talking. I'm gonna step back because I'm going all off emotion right now. Forgive me. But if I understand everything correctly, we got a lot of horror stories to tell y'all. A lot of horror stories about what this district has done to Black communities. And it's gonna change. It's gonna change. And so I appreciate your presentation. I'm not yelling at you. I think you know that. I'm just, you know, we have a moment to really be leaders. Be leaders. And part of that is you don't run from the truth. You don't run from the smoke, you run to it. And so thank you all for that moment.